Good evening, everybody. Delighted to be with my really good friend, Presantha Dassa.
Thank you.
We are both at Carmelitos, where we came together to discuss a business idea around AI. So, too early for us to give anything away on that. But Presantha and I'll give a very quick introduction, Presantha, and
Yes.
then we'll have you also add anything that you feel can add context to this. So, Prashant and I know each other from Thai Ottawa, the Indus Entrepreneurs, where uh, we've been together for almost 8 years.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
8 years. And both of us work on the organizational side as volunteers. So, a very rich history of working together, organizing events, facilitating networking, helping people with the coaching and mentoring. And during these 8 years, I've just come to know Prashanta as an all-round chill guy.
Thank you.
Just like I, his looks don't give away how old he is. So once we start talking about his experience and everything that he's had to offer to his numerous employers, Rogers, a very big telecom company here in Canada, IBM, that everybody knows, International Business Machines. And now Presantha is with NetApp, and he'll talk to us a little bit more about what keeps him busy at NetApp. But the most important thing, looking at the focus that I have in this channel on bringing to new immigrants, students, and permanent residents
Residents.
alike, thoughts, perspectives, knowledge, understanding of issues that they need to be better aware of. Prashantha actually came here just like I as an immigrant, and that was a second hop for him. His first hop was from Sri Lanka to UK at the age of 5, and after spending 35 years in UK, Prashantha moved to Canada. Was Ottawa the place where you
It
landed?
was, yes.
So you landed in
Straight
Ottawa,
into Ottawa.
and
Yes.
and you've been in Ottawa for almost 15 years now.
15 years now. Yeah.
Wow. So yeah, 8 years of our friendship and relationship, 15 years for him in Ottawa after spending 35 years in the UK, and he works with NetApp. We also have that in common. Both of us come from a technological background, have spent a significant part of our life in that sector, but also both of us are very strong hustlers on the side. And he's one of the very few people I know who's got like 89 businesses running in parallel with his full-time job, and God only knows how he manages it. But welcome.
Thank you.
Why don't you, any gaps that I left in there before we get into the questions, because we're not going to make it too long, but we want it to be comprehensive enough for them to understand you.
I think you might touch on what I did in the UK, but maybe didn't know. I actually had 2 IT companies back in. I started, I think, was '97, and then merged that into another bigger organization. We were supplying a lot of blue chip companies, and I think a lot of people know Electronic Arts or
And this
EA
was in the
Sports.
UK?
This was in the UK.
Wow. Actually, I want to go back to Sri Lanka
Okay.
because I think that will be very interesting for folks to know that, like I said, this is your second hop,
Second immigration, should we say?
second
Yeah.
innings.
Yeah.
So tell us about why the family moved from Sri
So
Lanka, and how was that? How was UK, and the reason for finally landing in Canada?
so I think it was down to my parents really. Back in the '70s, the immigration was a big thing, trying to get better lifestyle for the family education. Sri Lanka was on a small island that it was challenging. I mean, both my parents are, well-to-do in terms of the work they did, but coming to England, humble beginnings. Believe it or not, we for the first 6 months to a year, we lived in one room with four of us.
In
So
UK?
in the UK,
Wow.
and then until my parents started getting more permanent jobs, and both in healthcare.
So that's something. It's so interesting that you mentioned that because Prasanta and I were discussing the general state of affairs in Canada before this, especially around the economy, and the projections that there are around immigration and job markets and all. And one of the things that we very quickly discussed was the expectations that people sometimes have, and
Very
they're
much so.
less of expectations and more of entitlement. So a whole year before you
Yeah,
moved out of that one room.
it was a whole year, and then we lived in again. It was two different rooms, or rooms within houses within a family. But again, humble beginnings, and then slowly my father got a more permanent position and got a house included in that, living quarters. And then we moved from the London area down to the south, and from there, it was still humble, but they started a mentally ill home for the elderly. I know, it was about 14 or so, and that sort of showed me how hard it is to get ahead. I was working there as well as a child, just helping out.
And how old were you at that time, roughly speaking?
About 13, 14 years old.
So you're working in a position of responsibility
Of
at that
course, yeah.
age. So
Yeah.
what I find interesting, and I think I should say it out loud,
Mhm.
is so often for people who left back home in the subcontinent,
Mhm.
uh, folks who moved to the Western world, they uh, folks tended to look at them saying they have such a good life. They're doing
Back
so well.
home,
Yeah,
yes,
like in Sri Lanka and India,
of course.
they would look at people who had left, thinking, "Oh my God,
They must be having a
they
fantastic
yeah
life.
they are having a
No
fantastic time,
hardship at all.
living in heaven."
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
when the actual reality for, like, because they only got to see the pictures and they only
Of
got to
course.
see those people when they came back for a visit,
That's right.
but the reality on the ground was very difficult
As
for.
I heard questions like someone was saying some time back, "Oh, do you have trees there?" So
In the United Kingdom.
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah, yeah.
So
Believe it or not, the first time I went back, somebody asked me if I had a chance to go where uh, to the beach where Pamela Anderson used to run, and
and
and I didn't know what to say. Like, people
yeah,
literally thought that the one visual that they had of the
it
Western
was
world through a TV was what it was.
hmm
Yeah,
exactly.
perfect. So Canada, how's Canada been for you?
So very challenging. The hardest, I would say, the first 5 years were the hardest. Trying to go from being a entrepreneur, business owner, to working for a company or looking for positions within Canada in IT. I must have gone through maybe 100+ resumes,
And this
and
is for somebody who had his education and training in United
in
Kingdom,
the United Kingdom,
had two
had two
businesses.
businesses. I've worked in electrical engineering. I've worked in Australia, Europe, in
You've been
data
to,
centers. Yeah, I nearly opened an office in Australia in 2006.
so you had all this experience, and yet coming into
I
the,
don't have Canadian experience.
and how
This
did that
is
leave you feeling?
worthless, really. It's like, well, I just, brought my entire family here, and I can't find a job. I got what I can, and as you mentioned, hustling. I'm not ashamed of saying it, but I used to knock doors for Rogers and try and sell TV and internet. It was not an easy task,
So
but
this the story of the guy selling the vacuum cleaners.
yeah, basically that
Yeah.
door-to-door sales. And you know what? I put it down as an experience. I've also done tech support for a US company in a call center, and then they saw, the ethics that us foreigners have compared to local Canadians is completely different. And you see, out of 30 people that were doing a course on tech support, whittled down to 10, and all of them are brown.
Yeah.
So, that
That,
goes to show.
because the hustle is real.
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, I recently wrote about the two key drivers in my entrepreneurial journey being desperation and jugaad.
hmm
Uh, this whole need to get things done
I like
and
the way
get
you put that,
and
Jigad.
and get
Yeah.
them done with the least possible.
Yeah.
Like where somebody else would have the privilege of being able to work with the resources that they wanted,
hmm
uh, we often had to do it with whatever we had.
Do you want to explain what Jigad means? Because I know, but
Yeah,
it
it's
might be
lean
good.
lean innovation. It's
Yeah.
basically
Making something out of nothing.
out of nothing.
Yeah.
Lean innovation. So where you can walk into your washroom and using what's available, build a car.
Yep.
because
That's about
that's
it. Yeah.
like you go into the washroom wearing your sandals and come out driving a car. That would be jugaad, yeah.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is even when I came, which would have been about 10 years before you,
Hmm.
um, there was not as much of an appreciation of jugaad.
Yeah.
And then 10 years after, everybody was talking about it
Yes.
because folks had started understanding that a big part of the world cannot survive without having that kind of a mentality,
Hmm.
like the mindset of just getting things done. Like
Exactly.
folks over here were reading like Mr. Robbins' books and other books on getting things done, and there were people who were
Hmm.
doing it without having read a book.
Yeah. And basically, that's how I started off in that way.
And where
It
is life
is.
now, sir? Because I think that's
So,
important for people to understand that for somebody who would have 15 years ago have had that reality where things were difficult in spite of all the experience, all the education,
mhm.
uh, is Canada still a struggle?
So not so much now. I have to say that it took something between 8 to 10 years for me to change direction into where I am now. So the last 5 to 6 years have been fantastic. Um,
So that's my
moving,
rule of thumb too.
yeah.
When somebody asks me,
Hmm.
I tell them to be prepared for a decade of their life, which I tell them is not going to be the same struggle that they were used to, especially if they were coming from the subcontinent. In your case, it was
Yeah.
different. You
Yes.
came here as a already entrepreneur,
Correct. Yeah.
so the transition was difficult.
It was difficult because again, you have to go down the dip and then
Yeah.
come back again, and I think it's important that you have to remember that any time this can happen in life, right? It's not about oh yeah, I'm here, I've arrived, I'm doing well. Anytime tomorrow, I could lose my job and you could be back in there. But it's being prepared to, the outcomes and how you deal with that outcome that changes you.
Yeah, to have a framework that
Yes.
allows you to make sense of any situation that comes your way,
Mm-hmm.
and to know how you're going to deploy whatever is available to you as talent
Yes.
to offset those challenges. Now, a very um, a thing that I'm always curious about, that when confronted with those challenges as they're related, like you said, having to take 20 steps back
Mm-hmm.
from where you were, and this is not your early life.
Oh,
This is when you were fairly well settled. I
yeah.
understand you came here with a family.
That's right. Yeah.
What did you have to lean most upon to go through that phase? Like, where did you get your strength?
That was a difficult question. I mean, trying to be positive in a negative environment, because you would think it's negative because all everything's thrown at you. How do you keep going on? And it does come down to your life and your family. Um, the support. Well, I've got three daughters who are doing very well, um,
And their
and
success
and their success.
justifies that struggle
It
now.
does, yeah. I mean, they were very successful, but you know what you do, the hustle you do, is the motivation, because you know that they're the ones who are going to benefit from your hustle.
So, in that context of where do you find your daughters to be now? Actually, Prashanta shared with me in detail what his daughters are doing, and I can tell you, they're all doing wonderful things. They followed in their parents' footsteps, and all of them are, professionally doing wonderfully well. The question then is, in the context of what you know the reality to be now for
Hmm.
your family, was it all worth it?
Absolutely, I wouldn't look back.
You came here from UK. Why
Yeah,
would you leave UK to come to Canada?
I would say that it's an so my concept is it's an island, just like Sri Lanka was. And, my parents left. It was a small country. I did the maths. Basically, I did the maths, and what I looked at was, okay, where's the future of England? Where is it going? The population is exploding there. What are the best chances of success for the children that I brought into the world? And it was either going to be Australia or Canada. I was about to, as I said, back in 2006, I was about to open in, actually no, 2004, I was about to open in my second office in Australia, Sydney. In
So
fact, it
you
was,
visited. So you went down.
I went to sign the papers.
Wow. So
That
you
was
had a sense of what
the
Australia
office
presented.
was yeah, the office was in the IBM building in Sydney. Great view and everything, but I looked at the whole thing and I was like, this is not right. You know, when you get a gut feeling, it's not right. So it wasn't right for the family. I couldn't be in two places at once, even if I had a CEO or someone there. How can I manage two different businesses? So expanding was not the right area. So I thought, okay, let me rethink this. How am I going to go? What am I going to do? Oh, let's move to Australia. But then, okay, Australia is 25 to 30 hours away from England. What happens if something happens to my parents or sister out there? So Canada was, my wife was living here. We had relatives, or she had relatives here. So it was an easier thing to do. But then again, okay, I don't speak French, so I won't go to Montreal. I didn't want to go from a London to a London, a busy town, so I didn't want to go to Toronto. And I thought, okay, Ottawa looks like the place. It's a government town. It's
White collar
established.
city,
Absolutely.
education and experience at that time,
Yeah,
you would have thought would matter a lot
of
to
course.
find that there were
Yes,
still challenges.
there were,
Yeah.
and also
But
it
I
was a
would
tech
contend
industry.
those challenges would have been a factor of a few X in
Oh yeah,
Toronto. It's not like if you would have
yeah.
gone to Toronto, it would have been any less of a struggle.
It would have been the easiest because you would have more industry that suited that, and you could get into the private sector. Here, with the IT sector and IT sales, it was very difficult. Even though you knew and had the experience, there's only a set number of people that will take you on board.
And it's also we had the massive, blow up of the tech sector in the early 2000s, and it took
Yeah,
Ottawa a fairly long time to
it
recover.
did. I
Like
mean, the
one
New
would even
Bridge
say it's
networks.
not
Yeah,
recovered still
yeah.
from
And New Bridge
let's
is a prime example. Look at
yeah.
how it's changed threefold. It's changed its
Yeah.
hands several times. So, yeah.
So when I asked Prasanta if he would be up for a conversation that I'm gonna put up on the channel, I actually had some questions prepared, and I don't think we're gonna be able to get through all of them because otherwise I'll have him here for a long time. So this is what I'm gonna do on the go. I'm gonna actually hold back on some of those technical questions for us to do a follow up. Maybe
Absolutely.
maybe
Yeah.
this coming Tuesday when we meet again at the Thai event,
Sounds good.
we
Yeah.
can do a 2.0. But what I would like to do is I would like to actually stay on this whole settlement and integration
Mm-hmm.
theme.
Uh-huh.
So with everything that you found, uh, give the people who are watching a sense of what should they be mentally prepared for if they are coming to Canada in today's day and time.
Okay.
When you know what you know from your experience, but you also know what you know about Canada now. First, that's the first part of the question. And second, any strategies or so what should they be prepared for, and any strategies or any advice for them.
Okay. So coming to Canada now, if I was in coming from wherever, I would say, I'm a very firm believer of failure makes you a better person. Be prepared to fall. Um, don't get disheartened. It's going to be hard, but pursue your passion.
You think it's worth coming to Canada still,
Absolutely.
if one
It's
looked at it in the context of
so
the decisions you made in the context of your family.
family is one thing, and another area is that Canada is such a vast country that it's growing. There's always going to be a potential for newcomers to come in. We're looking at 25 million people coming in the next, 10 years to 15 years. And if you look at Stats Canada, you'll get those facts. There's a need, whatever it is, there's a need. But if you come in with an open mind of knowing what the needs are, finding out what the needs are, I feel you will make it a success.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I've taken a very hard stand on how we know what the problems are in Canada. We
Mm-hmm.
know as people who live here,
Absolutely, yeah.
and we acknowledge that some of those challenges are challenges that were not known to us before. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of uncertainty about a few things. But I've taken a very hard stand that these are our problems, these are our challenges. So for
Correct.
those who are either complaining about these or who make them sound the reason why people should not come here, I've taken a very hard stand saying No, we got this. We
Mhm.
may be putting our head around it, but we have the talent necessary and the will necessary to address it.
Mhm.
The negativity that currently surrounds some of these elements should not be a reason for somebody to not come here. Whether they want to come here or they do not want to come here should be based upon their understanding of what they are going to do
Mhm.
once they get here and how they're going to get ahead of where they find themselves when they get here. What are your thoughts on that?
I think you've hit the nail on the head. Wherever you go, whatever country you go to, you're always going to have an issue, right?
Actually, even
Every
within your
country.
own country,
Yep.
like if you move in India from Punjab to South India,
There's there's going to be issues. It's how you deal with those issues, how you prepare yourself mentally to accept these challenges. If you come in with, okay, this is going to happen whether I like it or not, and I expected that when I was coming. The challenge was, I mean, I was lucky that I got a job within 2 days of arriving.
you got a job here within
Literally
2 days.
within 2 days.
I thought you said things were difficult.
It was, but I was so underpaid, and it
Okay.
was just not a. I mean, it wasn't a fantastic role,
It was not a job
but
that you.
it should have been. But I found
Yeah.
out that I was actually being used. You weren't going to the company, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I look at it as a learning curve. Every job I've had is a learning curve. It's not a disappointment. I mean, working as a tech support guy for the U.S. internet company, getting paid something like $11, $12 an hour. I go back and it was a 6 month stint, but I called it paid college.
Yeah, you learn so much.
If you don't learn from an experience, then you haven't gone forward.
I early on in my career, I shared this with my students at Lambton.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on a gig, and I worked on that gig for 3 years on campus. And the gig was basically I had to spend a month for a program on campus, living on campus, and helping a team deliver it. The first time around, I got $900 for the month. It literally came down to $1.25 an hour.
Wow.
An hour. I did it for 3 years. By the third year, the money had gotten a bit better. I
Mm-hmm.
still was like 30% of the minimum wage at that time.
Right.
But it was somebody I met in the program who made me my first offer. And
There
that
you go.
offer was a full 30 to 40% above what I could demand in the market at that time because he'd seen me in that program 2 years in a row.
Mm-hmm. It's the hustle.
And
That people
and he
see that.
approached me. Yeah.
And that's how I actually got the IBM job, was through LinkedIn, because they saw the various what I did in the past. A lot of people go through LinkedIn nowadays, and I don't know, there are crawlers, there's software that's available, but even actually the last three positions were from LinkedIn.
Uh, So, and I say this out loud to people when they ask me, I tell them that in Canada, merit still gets recognized.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you have it in you, you'll have the opportunity to shine.
Absolutely.
So, thanks for sharing that. Three
Yeah.
times from LinkedIn.
It's what you have to do and how you do it, right?
I never met anybody who said that ever before. Okay, so
There you go.
we'll wrap it up, but why don't we
2.0
wrap it
is
up?
coming up.
Why don't we wrap it up on uh, you mentor a lot of people.
Yes.
You guide a lot of people. You work in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. That's what our relationship at TAI is. You get to meet a lot of people working on side hustles. So, as a parting piece of advice,
Mm-hmm.
an international student here, an immigrant here, what would you tell them? Or what should they be doing other than looking for a job, other than just looking to understand the system? Like, what would you tell them about the mindset piece, the skill set piece? What should they be doing?
The one differentiator, I would say, and why I became more successful in what I do, is how I changed the mindset of where I want to be and what I want to do. If you, yes, there's so many organizations, and it's in Ottawa, it's who you know, it's being seen. And one of the I actually attended one of the newcomers courses when I think 5 years after I was here. And one of the things I learned from all these immigrants that are having the same sort of issues that I had was that, oh, we don't have Canadian experience, or um, they weren't able to um, be forthcoming or forward. Inherently, a lot of the immigrants are very shy, and that's a challenge here. If you want to succeed here, you have to be noticed.
So what would be a
Yeah.
strategy for that, Prashanta?
Um, things like the networking events that we go to, whether it's Thai or Tech Tuesday, it's just finding groups that you can integrate with that would be within your same scope of, okay, I'm a doctor and I need to, get to know medical people. A lot of people do reach out to me or are introduced to me and go, oh, can you help this guy? And I go, yeah, okay, this is what you need to do. I'll check back you in about a week, and we have that 2 or 3 weeks of chatting to see, okay, how's the course correction? How are you doing? Uh, it is challenging for people to go out, whether it's funding or whatever it is, but if you are not networking or getting to know people and assimilating into the Ottawa population or wherever you are, you're not going to go forward. Not nowadays.
So you're basically making a case for being proactive.
You have to be
Be
proactive.
be proactive. Be brave. Um, More people want to help you than you think
Absolutely. Yeah.
possible, and
If you don't ask, you don't get.
yeah, and a lot of people have been through the same journey.
Mhm.
They have had the same challenges.
Exactly.
The Canadians pride themselves on being very kind, very humble people, and that is true.
Yeah,
An
absolutely.
average Canadian on the ground will stop to ask you if they feel that you're in distress. An average Canadian that you meet at a networking event, if you're
Yeah.
standing by yourself, would come and
And say,
ask
hey.
you who you are and what are you doing in your life. So just put yourself out there,
Exactly.
believe in yourself,
Very true.
and invest in communication. Like
Mhm.
I find a lot of
Absolutely.
people do not are not conscious about their technical communication skills,
Mhm.
and they tend to come out into the community thinking that what they employ in their social settings would also apply in professional settings, and I find that's
Yes.
something that you have to be conscious
Yeah.
about. Yeah.
Very true.
Presanta, it's such a pleasure.
Thank you. Likewise.
I really appreciate the time, and as all of you know, I'm doing this just to make sure that folks have a perspective. Like I'm calling this series "Canada Through the Eyes of Canadians," and
Love it.
I couldn't have taken the time to talk to a Canadian who should be more proud of himself.
Thank you.
From Sri Lanka to England to Canada, and doing so well here. So from Carmelitos on
Okay.
Longfields,
Yeah.
we both say bye to you, and hopefully, somewhere down in the future, we'll have some news to share about this new idea that we are discussing
Yes.
that we both feel very,
Passionate about.
very passionate and very good about. So, we'll take your leave. Please do subscribe, turn on the notifications. Look up Prasanta on LinkedIn.
LinkedIn.
Presantha is with an EPIE, Presantha,
That's it.
and last name is Dassa, Dassa, and he is with NetApp. So till I see you again, enjoy and be safe.